Tuesday, and our press reviewer Elena Casas is there for that. And here in France, of course, we're celebrating an entrance as Hollande takes up the presidency, but the world's press seems to be counting down to an exit, that is Greece's exit from the euro, potentially.
Yes, world braces for Greek exit is the Independent's front page this morning. I think the press have moved on from speculating about this to assuming that it's inevitable, at least before this autumn, they're saying in the Independent. Now, actually, their editorial today says it's the chronicle of a death foretold. They reckon a mechanism for getting out of the euro should have been planned at the time when the currency was originally envisaged. They should have known that this would happen. The economic fundamentals in Greece 10 or 15 years ago should have set off some bells in somebody's head, and they should have realised that with the rules that the euro was built around, the Independent says, this was inevitably going to happen. You can't have a constant economic boom. At some point there was going to be a recession, and then the big holes in the fundament, if you like, of how the euro was built would then clearly be revealed, and someone, in this case Greece, would end up falling into it. They reckon that maybe the euro itself, the scale of the project, the amount of countries that it brought in, some of which with quite weak economies to start with, might have been a mistake to begin with. Perhaps a narrower currency, just bringing in a core of France, Germany, the Netherlands, Belgium and so on would have been a better project. As it is, it might have just been a disaster waiting to happen, and the longer we draw it out doesn't mean it's going to be any better. That's the Independent. The Guardian's front page this morning is Europe's elite braced for Greece exit on its front page. They reckon there might be what it calls a grey market springing up in Athens imminently in old drachmas. They even speculate that the Greek government might have already started printing new drachmas, which would be illegal if they are doing. Wonderful if a journalist could, of course, actually prove that, but it is just speculation. Now, they've got different scenarios in the paper. They've talked to different economists about how Greece might actually leave the single currency. Frankly, they're all a bit apocalyptic. On the best possible scenario, of course, that at least it could be contained within Greece, and then you might get, one economist says, the 35 billion euro notes that Greeks have stuffed under their mattresses back out and into the economy, because they'd have to change them back into drachmas. So that might be quite useful, and then it might make Greece more competitive if you massively devalued the currency, and then you'd have cheaper labour costs and so on. The really bad scenario, though, well, it doesn't look good if you're Greek or if you've got money in a Greek bank. If that were to happen, they'd end up probably having to nationalise all the banks, probably freeze all accounts, impose really tight capital controls to stop you leaving Greece with a suitcase full of cash, and perhaps even border controls to stop people from simply fleeing. So that would mean foreign armies even on the borders of Greece that they evoke in one column in The Guardian. Sounds a bit terrifying, doesn't it?
It's a little bit apocalyptic there, definitely. OK, well, that's so much for the Greek crisis. The other big story today, of course, is that meeting between François Hollande, who's being inaugurated today, and Angela Merkel in Germany. Has that made the front pages or the foreign press at all?
Well, some of the foreign press is being a bit more positive about it, actually, than papers are here in France. The New York Times says they might actually see more eye to eye than Merkel and Sarkozy did. They have more similar styles. Perhaps the more pragmatic, companionable Mr. Hollande might be easier for Merkel to get on with. And maybe the policy differences between them have been exaggerated. After all, it's in both of their electoral interests to see some growth now, after the voters in Germany don't turn out to be very keen on austerity either, as we saw in regional elections on Sunday. The Tagesspiegel, which is a German left-wing newspaper, also says it would be good for Europe to have a stronger, more left-wing France that can stand up to Merkel's policy. But if we have a look at the Independent's cartoon, they can't resist making a bit of a crack at the couple's new first date. They've got Angela Merkel with a big thick belt, pulling it in, tightening it up, ready for her first date with François Hollande, and he's got enormous trousers on and is saying, got to leave room for growth. So even if this Franco-German couple don't go on beachside walks like the last one, I'm sure we'll get more couple-based jokes from the papers.
Definitely. Interesting that François Hollande did lose some weight during the campaign. He certainly looks like he has there. But talking of couples, staying with that theme, lots of foreign press interest in France's new First Lady, briefly.
Yes, Valérie Trierweiler, of course, held responsible for him losing so much weight during the campaign. They talk about how, as a seasoned journalist, she might have been responsible for his PR transformation, and indeed for deciding to sell him as Mr. Normal to the French public, which certainly worked after Sarkozy, the bling-bling president. But will they actually be that much more normal than Carla and Sarkozy once they're in office? Well, they certainly have an equally complicated personal lives, even if Hollande has tried to portray himself as a bit more down-to-earth and normal. And we'll wait and see how much of a role, how many strings she tries to pull once she's in the Elysee, of course. Lots of commentators saying she might be a little bit too much influential on her partner.
OK, well, watch this space. Thank you very much indeed, Elena, for that look at today's international newspapers. Let's get a reminder now.